Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Lexington, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. Don't go anywhere else. Guess what they're doing now to the Palestinians? So they bombed them out of every city that they lived in Gaza. They've herded them now, and now they've decided to starve them. So this is from this isn't from Gray Zone or I Hate Israel newspaper. This is from the AP. Just like also the last
Israeli press.
Just like the last Israeli press. Or just like the last story we did. Now the New York Times is telling you the truth that the Israeli army is using human shields. Now, Netanyahu mulls plan to empty northern Gaza of civilians and cut off aid to those left inside. Let's read this story. It's a great story. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is examining a plan to seal off humanitarian aid. They've already done that, by the way. So they've done that. They shoot people. Moles. Right. They shoot people delivering humanitarian aid. They block humanitarian aid. And how do I know this? Because every agency in the United States government reported that they did that. And then Antony Blinken, the head of the State Department, said, no, they're not doing that. So he lied to Congress.
They're looking into it.
In an attempt to starve out Hamas militants. But that plan, if implemented, could trap without food and water hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians.
That's the idea. Wink.
Israel has issued many evacuation orders for the north throughout the year-long war, the most recent of which was Sunday. The plan proposed, you know what they've done before is they've warned people leave and go here, and then when they go there, they bomb them. That's why when you hear they're bombing refugee camps, that's what Israel's been doing all along. Why do you think there's refugee camps inside Gaza? Because they fled their homes hoping they wouldn't get killed, and then they bombed them anyway. Well, so now people aren't going to leave their homes.
Hey, maybe they'll starve them and send them to a small American town and feed them our cats.
Yeah. The plan proposed to Netanyahu and the Israeli parliament by a group of retired generals would escalate the pressure, giving Palestinians a week to leave the northern third of the Gaza Strip, including Gaza City, before declaring it a closed military zone. And then what do? Then those who remain would be considered combatants. Even if they're
their own hostages.
Even if they're 6 days old or 89 years old. Meaning military regulations would allow troops to kill them. As if they haven't been doing that all along. And then they would deny them food, water, medicine, fuel, according to a copy of the plan given to the AP by its chief architect, who says the plan is the only way to break Hamas in the north and pressure it to release the remaining hostages. It's all bullshit. Hamas has already agreed to release the hostages for a ceasefire. They won't do it. So you're not going to break Hamas.
Well,
what you're doing is they don't want to break Hamas. They want to keep Hamas there so they can keep doing this. That's why
they're sympathetic, not if they're Hamas's, though.
That's right. Israeli defense officials, government pushing aside hostage deal, eyeing Gaza annexation. So the impediment to the hostage deal has been Netanyahu. That's why people hate Netanyahu, even in Israel. That's why that's why they've been protesting Netanyahu, even inside Israel. IDF commanders in Gaza say the recent decision to operate in the northern part of the Strip was taken without proper deliberations and is apparently aimed at pressuring civilians in the area to relocate. According to Israel's government is not seeking to revive the hostage talks. That's from the Israeli newspaper.
Right. Well, they don't have
they're
AIPAC.
The ones.
We have AIPAC. They don't have AIPAC. They don't have an ADL. Those are things for us stupid assholes in America to have in our news. And they get to hear what they're doing.
And so what they want to do is annex Gaza into the greater Israel project. They don't only want Gaza and the West Bank. They want parts of Syria. They want parts of Iran. They want parts of Iraq.
Oh, think how great it'll be to move in there right after they get done doing that. How comfortable you'll feel around your neighbors.
The plan calls for Israel to maintain control over the north that's called imperialism. They're called occupying and they're called colonial settlers.
Yeah,
these are things that the college kids have been taught for at least 50 years. That's the worst thing you could be.
Well, they could have moved out of America. That's how we got our great nation.
So the plan calls for Israel to maintain control over the north for an indefinite period to attempt to create a new administration without Hamas, splitting the Gaza Strip in two. This has been their plan all along. One official with knowledge of the matter said parts of the plan are already being implemented. A second official who was Israeli said Netanyahu has read and studied the plan. Like many plans, they have reached him throughout the war. But he didn't say whether any of it had been adopted. Well, they're already implementing some of it. On Sunday, Israeli launched an offensive against Hamas fighters in Jabalia refugee camp north of the city. The amount of aid reaching the north has declined significantly since October 1st. Yeah, that means that Israel's stopping humanitarian aid to the people in northern Gaza. Vice President Kamala Harris says the UN reports that no food has entered northern Gaza in nearly 2 weeks. Well, I guess we should give Israel more money. Yeah. Israel must urgently do more to facilitate the flow of aid to those in need. Civilians must be protected and must have access to food, water, and blah, 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 blah. Go F yourself. CNN says no food has entered northern Gaza since the start of October, putting 1 million people at risk of going hungry. Who says that? The World Food Program says that. CNN, did you hit your head bending over backwards this far to avoid saying that Israel is blocking food from Gaza? No food has entered? That's how CNN reports that. No food has entered. Oh, it's the food. The food doesn't want to enter, huh?
Does it not have its papers?
The U.S. State Department spokesperson has said Washington is against any plan that would bring direct Israeli occupation in Gaza.
So? What are you going to do? They're going to put those tapes out of all that stuff you guys did that Epstein got. So you better let them do whatever the hell they want forever. Because Israel knows what you are, and they'll tell us. That's why.
Human rights groups fear the plan's potential. Man, I would just love to see the videos of Bill Clinton that Epstein has, because they had. So that means the Mossad has. Human rights groups fear the plan's potential toll on civilian. Human rights groups say the plan would likely starve civilians, and that it flies in the face of international law, which prohibits the use of food as a weapon and forcible transport. Is there a Geneva Convention or an international rule of war that Israel hasn't blatantly broken many times already? Accusations that Israel is intentionally limiting food to Gaza are central to the genocide case brought against it at the International Court of Justice. A coalition of Israeli non-governmental organizations on Monday urged the international community to act, noting that there are alarming signs. Even Saudi Arabia won't act. Qatar won't act. Even other Arab nations won't do a goddamn thing.
Well, they're kind of in on it.
They are kind of in on it. The only people that are doing anything about it are the Houthis in Yemen.
Yeah, well,
and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Those are the only people doing anything.
Saudis, Pakistan, they're all in the network. They're all in the network together with our shitty government and NATO and the whole Epstein. He's just a small node in the network, just a small one.
There are alarming signs that the Israeli military is beginning to quietly implement the plan. They're doing it. Of course they are.
Quiet? Is it?
States have an obligation to prevent the crimes of starvation and forcible transfer. A wait-and-see approach will enable Israel to liquidate northern Gaza. Of course, that's their whole plan. That's always been the plan. That's why Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu funded Hamas. So far, very few Palestinians have heeded the latest evacuation order. Some are older, some are sick, or afraid to leave their homes, but many fear there's nowhere safe to go anyway, and they'll never be allowed back. Of course they won't. Mm-hmm. Israel has prevented those who fled earlier from the war from returning. Yes, of course.
Of course.
Jeremy Scahill, who every once in a while says something worth listening to, other times he's a lapdog to power. Well, this time he's got something to say, I guess.
Was he a vax guy? Was he a COVID vax guy?
he won't tell you the truth about Syria. He won't tell you the truth. He's just a bullshit. Yeah, he gave cover to AOC during Force the Vote. He's one of those guys. He works for The Intercept. He gets paid by a billionaire, so his opinion has to go through a billionaire first. According to Israeli officials, Antony Blinken approved policy to bomb Gaza aid trucks. Following the meetings, Bezalel Smotrich said that policy was aid trucks hijacked by Hamas and its organizations would be bombed from the air. So they just say, oh, those aid trucks have been hijacked by Hamas. So they're just bombing aid trucks. And they're admitting it. And it's so bad that even Jeremy Scahill has to say something about it. Isn't that something? President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and Antony Blinken caught in a huge scandal. They actively engaged in a cover-up of their own agency's findings and data regarding Israel intentionally blocking humanitarian aid in Gaza and had Blinken lie to Congress. We've already reported this. I think that's a 4-year-old girl who starved to death. So, hip, hip, hooray. And I know there's a lot of people in this audience who think it's smart or cool or somehow to support Israel. It's not. They're terrorists. They're terrorist Nazis. This isn't two armies fighting. This is one army with Apache helicopters and 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs, and tanks slaughtering innocent civilians. That's what this is. And so if you don't like Nazis, then you shouldn't like the Israeli army or Netanyahu. Anyway, it's just mind-blowing to me how people can still, because they've been so mind-warped into thinking, oh, Hamas, they're bad. It's not about Hamas. It's not about Hamas. Hey, today's economic environment is still really stressful for a lot of us. But with the Fed finally dropping interest rates, there is no better time than now to put you and your family in a better financial position. If you're a homeowner, American Financing is helping thousands of families just like you who have been putting everyday expenses on credit cards get out from underneath that debt by tapping into their home's equity. American Financing is saving their borrowers over $800 a month on average. $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 raise at work. And it costs absolutely nothing to find out how much you can save. They are closing some in as little as 10 days. And if you start today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment. There is no better time than now to turn your situation around. Call today, 888-804-0303. That's 888-804-0303, or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Jimmy. Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Lexington, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. Don't go anywhere else.